I hereby invite Dr. V. Shankar to give his presidential address.
Directly Martha. हाँ टीम कर दे. माला सुदाम कुंभ विबोध मुद्रा विद्या विराजत करवारी जाताम अपार कारुण्य सुदम्बुराशिम श्री शारदांबा प्रणतोस्मि नित्यम. Seeking the benediction of Jaganmata Sharda Parmeshwari, Vagdevi Saraswati, that repository of all that is culture, knowledge, tradition, wisdom, art, learning, and fine art, I bow to her as I commence my address today. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this pleasant function organized this morning, heralding the commencement of a new journey in the 95-year-old history of our institution, the South Indian Education Society. Today, we give birth to the 20th child in the SIES family. An occasion like this, unique as it were, enhances and adds to our collective joy. It marks a shift from an abstract, fragile idea into an institution of permanence that serves the nation, of a legacy that shifts from personal triumphs into self-serving, self-sustaining, enriching entities that enable creation of pillars of permanence that support, protect, preserve, educate, and even heal the future generations to come. These and more are the objects forming part of the vision and mission of the new baby that is about to be born. There can never be greater joy than to have a birth of a child on the eve of a national celebration of its Independence Day. At the dawn of tomorrow's morning, we will be celebrating the 80th year of India's independence. 80 years in the history of a nation may not be a long period. Nations are all structured for perpetuity. But 2 generations apart and 8 decades later is as good a time frame as any now to assess the gains of freedom, assess the contribution of the nation to the welfare of the people post-independence. And formal markers like these milestones provide an opportunity for the same. Despite the celebratory spurt, the religiosity and the fervor with which we celebrate these days, it also gives an occasion for reflection of moments down the memory lane, of those selfless sacrifices, turbulences, vicissitudes, out of which has been born a new nation called as India. When an individual reaches 80 years of age, it's a major milestone in a person's life journey. To a person who follows the Hindu faith, the samskaras, the 40 samskaras, which are enjoined on a person from womb to the grave, one of the most significant functions to be performed is Sadabhishekam. In the case of nation, every day of progress in an era of freedom of thought action is a reminder of many more things to be achieved out of the freedom that has been earned by the sacrifice of others. More than 4,000 years ago, when the first alphabets were etched in tablets of clay in Indus Valley civilization, even today, there are several Indians, not only in the remote corners of this country in far-flung areas, but even in urban areas, who cannot read and write. That is why these celebrations assume great importance. And more so, when we revisit the thought of Akshara as fundamental to the progress of mind than that of entities or even nations, it is double joy. And the birth of one more institution of SIES on the eve of independence marks a new journey in the years ahead as we race to our own century a few years later. Time has indeed flown. It was as if a few decades ago, India released itself from the bondage of a foreign yoke and ushered in that independence. When the late first Prime Minister of the country, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, unfurled the tricolour at the Rampart Row and ushered in the freedom of the nation, and then gave those memorable words when he said, "Not long ago we made a tryst with destiny. Now the time has come to redeem that pledge, though not in full measure, but substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world is asleep, India shall awake to life and freedom." Panditji belonged to a different era. Therefore, he was blissfully unaware that in the southern hemisphere, both in Australia and New Zealand and far-off places, the day had already broken out. But nonetheless, the message that he gave, when the world is asleep, India shall awake to life and freedom. That is the reason why celebration of a national day, when it is coupled with the celebration of a birth of an institution, makes it extremely significant. Occasions like this are not just for joy and mirth and glee. As I said at the beginning, it provides an opportunity to reflect. And more so, as looking ahead to formulate those strategies and action plans as would shape the future destiny of the nation. We have a bounden duty as part of this generation to preserve all those identities that our forefathers had given it to us and transmitted it down the ages on to today. We have to preserve them. We have lost several of those identities and attributes along the way. It's time that we regain them as well and bring out that uniqueness of what the world calls it as India. जो खोया है उसे पाना है, जो पाया है उसे न खोना है, आज़ादी अधूरी है. Independence is still half achieved only, and we have a very long way to go. India's balance sheet is enriched by very strong fundamentals of a demographic dividend, overloaded with more than 65% of a youthful population, a vibrant population, a nation which depends on the youth to surge ahead, of an aggressive rate of growth of gross domestic product, and therefore the economic parameters are on the upswing for the nation. A unity in diversity which the world had never seen elsewhere when there is balkanization of states in more powerful nations of the world. And more importantly, of a uniqueness of a culture, a heritage that had withstood the onslaught of time and all ravages of inflation and still shines. All these are part of the assets of this great nation of ours. And therefore, to build on these assets, to protect them and to preserve them, not only for ourselves, for the benefit that will inure to the future generation as they take this nation forward, is the principal responsibility of every celebration, be it an event, be it the creation of an institution, or a reminder of a birth of a nation on this day several years ago. The government of the day had already envisioned the dream for this nation, the Viksit Bharat, a developed India, by the turn of 2 decades from now, by 2047, when India would be celebrating the centenary of its existence as a free nation. Policies of the government are only stated facts. They do not become a reality. They are dreams if not implemented. If wishes are horses, only beggars will ride on them. There is a greater responsibility for every Indian beyond the governments of the day to carry forward the mission of Viksit Bharat, of a nation that is developed, a nation where poverty would be alien not only to its thought, but even to the reality on the ground. And that would be the true celebration of creation of institutions that Pandit Ji had envisaged in 1947 as the bulwark, the bedrock, as the backbone of a free nation. It is the institutions, not individuals, that maketh the nation, he said. And therefore today, when we are adding one small institution, to countless many would be added during the course of the day or tomorrow, is only one step ahead to strengthen the nation. SIES Akshara Samskriti is a shining star, a new baby in the SIES horizon. Mission 2032 guides and dictates and strategizes both the medium-term, the long-term, and the near short-term policies of the society in its onward march in the years ahead till 2032, when the institution will reach the centenary of its institutional journey, starting way back from 1932. This block period of 2025 to 2032 sets in motion a new trajectory to move away from the existing orbit, like we want the nation to move away from its existing thoughts into a newer India, so too for an institution to gather and acquire for itself a newer identity. And these 5 years are those promising years for us to deliver. SIES Akshara Samskriti was brought in the background of the landscape of changes, vast changes that are taking place in the arena of education, and more particularly higher education in the country. With the promulgation of the National Education Policy, the focus has been a 360 degrees turn from what was obtaining in the country before that. Over the years, education as an instrument of change had lost its flavor and fragrance post-independence. Singularly, NEP 2020 is a serious, sincere attempt on the part of the government of the day to rewrite the greatness, the glory, and the impact of higher education and formal education in the making of people and their character. These vast changes that have been brought forth, integral and central to them is the quality of education, the academic standards, the academic qualities. It's the pivot around which the entire action plan of academic institutions move around. And these are again part of a system that is subject to several facets which are part of the composite process of academics and learning. Therefore, it cannot be isolated. In any field of activity relating to education, the only cornerstone to be touched is quality and quality alone. And in such a changing landscape, publishing has gained newer prominence, greater importance. Publishing validates the scientific research efforts of the faculty. It promotes global sharing of knowledge, and it fulfills the singular mission of the teaching faculty to share their discoveries, thoughts, and understanding by vetting them through academic peers and through peer channels of review. It helps and sustains the learning process for the student community, and more importantly, it's a key element to the global reputation index for any academic institution. Like every other institution, this institution will also be born as an infant. Infants don't turn adult overnight. So SIES Akshara Samskriti will be a lean organization to begin with. So it will start, it has already started. The intention to start is being notified today. Dr. Uma Shankar will be its first honorary director till we make regular arrangements to have someone to head SIES Akshara Samskriti. This will be one institution which will have no boundaries. All other institutions have physical boundaries, mental boundaries. boundaries created by us, boundaries foisted onto us, either by legislation or by ourselves. But this institution will be free from the fetters of let hindrance, and therefore it shall grow holistically. It shall not be guided by targets. And only when there is a scholarly impulse for a teacher to reduce to writing her research or his research, his patented work, or his thoughts, or his own observations in relation to newer changes that are taking place in the universe, then only the need for an activity for Akshara Samskriti will come. To publish it, subject of course to vetting it through the academic peers who shall certify it as good for being published. And Akshara Samskriti will ensure that publishing will be in all spheres, in all streams of study, whether it is science, applied science, technology, engineering, communication, management, arts, applied arts, sociology, philosophy, psychology, arts, and the glory of fine arts as well. So there will be no field of human endeavor relating to education which will be outside the ambit of SIES Akshara Samskriti. And like any other institution, it shall also grow with time. It is our stated intention that before we reach the centenary of our institutional journey, SIES Akshara Samskriti will have its administrative infrastructure, will have its own physical infrastructure, will have its own digital studio, will have its own printing and publishing house, and will have the host of visualizers, copywriters, composers, designers, and the entire army of the faculty from kindergarten till PhD, constituting the backbone of SIES Akshara Samskriti and contributing to the work of SIES Akshara Samskriti. There is no agenda for this institution if the teachers have nothing to contribute. If they share all that they have gained during the process of teaching, then we have a lot of work to do in this institution of ours. A beginning has to come. You don't launch an institution by saying we declare it open by cutting either the cake or the ribbon and say it's done and gone. The way academic institutions are created are either based on stated facts or on something which will be a shadow of what is about to come. Therefore, as part of the initial offerings, we have 3 books which are seeing the light of the day today. There are critical thoughts on the nation, on education, and geriatry, all poles apart. But there can never be a greater start to an institution than to glorify the greatness of the nation itself. And therefore, it gives me great pleasure to say that the first book that hits the deck and comes on to the post is India at 80. My India, 80 years old, 80 years young, 5,000 years old. Now this book is a second edition, a republishing of the original one that was written India at 70 in 2016. And over the last decade, never before in the history of these 8 decades has so much of sea changes that have taken place in the landscape of development of this nation in any sphere of human endeavor than the era between 2016 to 2026. The volume changes that have taken place are mind-boggling. And therefore, the process of bringing on an updation, a republishing of a book which was 70 years story, almost became a new story to be scripted, because the growth rate between the 70th and the 80th year itself would have been the subject matter of one book by itself. But then we decided that we carry the legacy of what we had done before, and it therefore fell onto the shoulders of Dr. Deepa Dixit, the director of the SIES School of Business Studies, under 3 enterprising young boys and a girl, to mine through the deluge of information, deluge of achievements, activities, failures, scan through them and decide, prioritize which are the most important ones that can feature as part of India at 80, and then filter them and then give it across to be part of this book. When the first edition was brought out, the entire book was divided and segmented into various parts, bringing out the full glory of this land of ours. 70 things that India gave to the world, and that today has become 80 things that India has given to the world. 80 things India has to do to become a developed nation, a Viksit Bharat. 80 least known facts about India. You all don't know, I also don't know, many don't know, and Palki Sharma seems to be educated through YouTube these days. Yes. That India's independence is celebration of ignorance. It used to be innocence when we were young, saying that we don't know, but we continue to be like that. So 80 the least known facts about India, 80 makers of modern India. Just as we had countless number of freedom fighters who gave unto us freedom from foreign yoke, at least 80 people who had made a mark as movers of this nation, shakers of this nation during this relative period of 80 years. We have added a new chapter, 80 unsung, unseen heroes and heroines of the nation in far-flung areas of the country who are making changes in the community around and who have at last been recognized with the nation through awards of the Padma Awards that are being given to them. And the last chapter, that the world acknowledges India. So it travels through these 7 segments of assessing India that we updated from 70 years to 80 years. While we are beholden to her and her team for having lent their hand of support and contribution to this effort, there is equally a fact which I need to share, that they got an opportunity to understand this nation better. They got an opportunity to know the unknown and know even the known, and then understand the greatness and the glory of what the world today acknowledges as India. I'm sure when these 3 young ones tomorrow graduate to full adulthood, they shall contribute to the greatness of this nation. And if somebody were alive around to write India at 110, 120, some of their names will feature in those sections where makers of modern India can come. Dr. Sengupta dons several hats. A career banker, he changed course like the river changes seamlessly as a career educationist. Because even in banking, what dominated him was banking education and training. So that was inherent in his veins that he became a career educationist. He retired from active service as the director of the SIES College of Management Studies on 15th of June 2010. 16 years have rolled by. Time has not shelled him, nor age has weathered him. He has added on to the lust of life through so many new factors that has come onto him. And as if it was meant for him, the national education policy came. The changes that are taking place in the field of education excited him to no end, and therefore he started dissecting the policy far more than even the policy makers or the authors of that policy, and he had many things to share with all stakeholders of education. And equally so, he did not bemoan the fact that he was robbed of his youth. When he retired, he knew that what he lost, he has gained as the maturity of adulthood. And therefore, the subsequent years did not bemoan that I am no longer a young person. So much of richness of experience had come onto him that he addressed issues of geriatry through the MRL, My Retired Life Foundation, addressing the concern of all elderly that there is so much to live for and very less to grieve for. And all these thoughts of his were given in the form of columns in Free Press Journal and Newsband, which appeared at different periodicity. And then over the years, they became a big collection by themselves. So when I approached him and told him there is so much in the reservoir, let's make them into books, he immediately consented and said, there can be no greater joy to any author, to any columnist, to see what he wrote a few years before. What is he writing today? Is he sustaining the same momentum of thought, or he himself is changing with time? And in fact, I showed him one book as an illustration of a man's letters to editors starting from 1940. I said, this is what can happen when you reduce it to a book. Digital media is no answer for a written book. The eye has got a limited capacity to see through. And we have become highlight readers, headline readers. And the thought and the process that gets into the columns are missed out, except that a few thoughts which might have come to our attention can remain with us. So we are beholden to him for having consented to share all these articles that he had written over several years now, segmented into two different identified segments, as to one in relation to education and the other in relation to aging gracefully. There can be no better example of aging gracefully than Dr. Sengupta himself. So, if someone who has failed in his old age were to write a book on aging gracefully, you know what would happen to that book. But a book written by someone who is experiencing the goodness of old age, the book will indeed be valuable for people. Everyone has to come to that phase of life. It's a defined phase of life. And only those who are blessed will enjoy that life, because others die quite early. And therefore, these two books have been proud as the initial offerings of the SIES Akshara Samskriti. We are indeed thankful to him for having given us the opportunity to initiate in the initial offering itself two diverse subjects which otherwise would not have come. Education might have come, but geriatry would not have come, but for the effort that he had taken to give us the benefit of his understanding of age, and age is only a number, and there's nothing beyond that. Let me stay for a moment on to books. Books are the lifeline of Akshara Samskriti. Without them, there is no life at all. Good books are king's treasures, said Rudyard Kipling. A house which has no books is a body without a soul. A house which is full of books, kept in the drawing room for exhibition, never read, are like a candle which is burning by the side of a young child all through the night when he is deep asleep. Books are like mirrors. If a ass were to peer through that, an apostle will not come out. You get what you see in the book. Nothing more, nothing less. Human life is also like books. Institutions' life are more profound to be compared to books. Most of us read only the cover page, the title of the book. Very few move beyond that hard bound or the soft bound to the index or the contents page. Large majority are opinionated by the critics who certainly would not have read the book. There is a microscopic minority which reads through the book, understands the contribution the author to the subject, which is the subject of the book itself, draw lessons therefrom, transform and reform, which is the object of any book that comes out in any fields of discipline. the perception about an institution, about a nation, can only be through totality of understanding. We can never reduce ourselves to the gigantic elephant and 7 blind men trying to discover what this big mass is all about. I think in the 5 years ahead, from 95 to 100, it shall be our efforts to ensure that we are understood better. Our work in the composite nature is known to the community of stakeholders who are benefited from what work we do. It enhances the brand, and more importantly, it will give an identity as an institution which does not deliver sermons only through classrooms and goes far beyond that into the classrooms of life which are played on the streets of public endeavor. So that shall be the singular effort of ours over these periods. The 21st century is a century of minds. India is destined to lead the world in the 21st century. Nations are not built by bricks or walls, but by minds. But then saying that we will lead is a statement of intention. It requires us to have a transformational change in our attitude. The dirt that has gathered over the last 80 years since independence to all of us. We have to shirk the inertia that envelops us and address ourselves to moving forward confidently in the path leading to that Viksit Bharat of ours. And then, at the unexpected hour, you will meet with success, like what David Henry Thoreau, the American philosopher, once said, that it shall come to you not for the asking, it shall come to you when you move in that direction of yours. For that to happen, India is to move from a culture of drift to dynamism, idle prattle to a balance of thought, work and action, from diffidence to confidence, and from despair to hope. Only when these attitudinal changes that take place in the Indian mind, then that mind is enriched to lead the world. Viksit Bharat is not only about the economic powerhouse that this nation should become. One of the stated facts is that India will regain its position as the Vishwa Guru, that exalted position that it enjoyed 200 years ago. And you can lead the world only when your mind is pure. Tagore said, into that world of freedom, lead unto me. Who does not love his country? I love my country, you love your country, and everyone loves his country. I love my country not because that I have cultivated an idolatry for its geography. I love my country not because I have been born in this soil, because it has saved through ravages of time the words of the illumined conscious ones, said Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. That's singularly the reason that we love this nation of ours. And therefore, it's our bounden duty not to fail the nation. The 2 generations that succeeded India's independence have completely failed the nation. We have replaced accountability with only irresponsible authority. We have fostered unto us a culture of corruption because we silently accepted it. We have forgotten that we are the authors of the people who are governing the nation. Robert Kennedy was not wrong when he said, on assuming the office of the president for the first time, ask not what you have done to your country, ask what you have done unto it. It has become a fashion for all of us to blame the government of the day for all the failures of the nation. Governments are only an extension of the people. And we little realize that we too have to contribute to reverse the trend that a government may set in. Elections will come after 4 or 5 years, but then you don't allow time to drift away like that. And that's where this generation has failed. But I have great confidence, personally and even as a nation, that the generation that is following, please do not reduce this generation to generation X, Y, Z. That's the American way of robbing the youth of its potential, the youth of the nation. It doesn't matter whether you are 15 years old or 30 years old. Don't bracket them into categories and communities. They have the power to write the story of a new India. They shall unfold a chapter which will be the most glorious chapter in the history of this long civilization of ours, which has crossed more than 5,000 years ago, several millennia, even before that. In them lies the destiny of this nation. Therefore, the least that we can do is hand over to them the pristine purity of whatever we have inherited, and whatever we have lost, get it back and give on to the next generation. It's futile to cry over spilt milk. What does it do? 80 years have been wasted. छोड़ो कल की बातें, कल की बात पुरानी, नया दौर है, नई उमंग है, अब लिखे नई कहानी, हम हिंदुस्तानी, हम हिंदुस्तानी. 80 years of independence and the birth of a new institution of ours is more and enough that we leave the past behind and script a new chapter, a glorious chapter in the history of this great nation of ours and this institution of ours, which is part of that great nation. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Swargiya Bade Pradhan, Bharat Ratna, was more a poet than a politician or even a prime minister. He mirrored the aspirations of the common man through the power of his words, rather than the action in the political system. Exactly in the year when 2003-2, addressing the country, he said for the first time that we should usher in the second freedom. It's time that we forget the first freedom that has come to us from the father of the nation and those countless number of people who gave their lives and sacrificed everything for this nation to be free. But let us usher in a second freedom, he said. And then he wrote those powerful words. Ahuti baki yajni adura, apno ko vigno se ghera, antim jay ki vraj banaye, naye dadichi addiya gilaye, आओ फिर से दिया जलाए, आओ फिर से दिया जलाए. Let us light the lamp of hope, an eternal lamp that will guide the nation forward, he said. On a joyous occasion like this morning, as we give birth to this institution of ours, we too are lighting the lamp of knowledge, the one that dispels the darkness and the ignorance that envelops every ordinary mind. We too have, in our own way, planned our agenda to give unto this nation a second freedom, a freedom from fear, favor, and want. A freedom that gives unto us a natural environment for growing all those potentials that reside deep inside us. Bring unto us all the Jekylls in us and suppress the Hydes behind in the body itself. As I come to the end of my address this morning, I invoke the blessings of the goddess to begin with, goddess of education to begin with. May she bless us so that we can all be partners in the progress of this nation, script a new history, and give on to the future of this country one of the brightest places in the planet Earth for them to live. Thank you and God bless.